And there we go. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, the Space Ghost. Or as Beetlejuice might say, the ghost with the most. I'd also like to introduce the lovely Jan. All righty. Well, we got a wonderful show for you this year. We have some guests coming back from last year. That'll be a lot of fun that you'll see. Let's see, what do we got going on here? So, our first guest, let's see, this is a tiny print here. Our first guest is the founder of the Museum of Video Game Art. Oh, that's very cool. That'll be exciting. All right, I gotta focus. Can we not print these things bigger, for Christ's sake? Jesus, you're killing me here. Which preserves and celebrates the art and design of classic video games. Very good. All right. He is also an author of the book of the Art of Atari and the Undisputed Street Fighter, a 30-year retrospective. So let's put your hands together for Tim Lapetino. Greetings. Welcome to the show. Have a seat there, sir. All right. So, how are you enjoying the free play so far?
Very well, very well. No BRAC sightings. I feel good about it.
Cool, cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun out there. We got a lot of action, a lot of noise. So much noise I can't even hear myself think. It's all bouncing around inside this cap of mine. All righty. So now I understand that you're a real big Atari fan. So exactly how old were you when you got your first Atari?
39? No, I'm just kidding.
Really?
No, I was 5. I was 5, and my dad brought it home from a store called the Video King. It was down the street from us, and they were on closeout. It was 1983, so it was in the middle of a video game crash, and that's the only reason I got one, because even though I'd been asking for it for at least a year, my dad didn't want to spend all that money because he's like, no, the future's in computers, you know. And but finally they went on clearance, much cheaper. We got one, my very first one, and I was obsessed with barnstorming for some reason, which I think is one of the most boring games. Actually, you just fly and try and go in barns and avoid birds. It's high concept, but I loved Atari. I thought it was really fun, and eventually I wrote this book. But it's really my dad's fault because I loved the art on the boxes, and I really, I loved it. I would stare at those things. I wanted to save them, and my dad's like, "Who saves the boxes to your video games? It's like saving the box to your refrigerator." And so he threw them all away. And of course, years of therapy later and buying them all back, that sort of like, sort of just focused my obsession, and eventually led to that book.
Oh, well, very cool, very cool. So now I remember when I was a wee little ghost, I had an Atari myself once. My favorites were, in particular, were Adventure and Asteroids. Of course, now we actually play Asteroids for real out on the Phantom Cruiser because we're having to dodge them all the time, getting around from planet to planet. So not a lot of fun, a lot of dings in the Phantom Cruiser. So
those buff right out, right?
So an Adventure, boy, that blasted bat would always steal my stuff. I hated that. So tell me, what were some of your favorite games on Atari?
I think Pitfall. I mean, everybody's favorite is kind of Pitfall. I mean, it's just a phenomenal game that felt like it went on forever, and even though it did. And I think Super Breakout was always one of my favorites, because it's this rainbow, wall, and you're a little square, and you're hitting the ball. But the box art totally blew me away because it's this astronaut with this rainbow thing reflected in the visor of his helmet, and it just felt like, it was this real thing now, and it was in space, and this guy maybe he had a ship, I don't know, probably wasn't as cool as the Phantom Cruiser, but it was a real thing in space. And I thought that for me, it was always awesome that the combination of these really simple games with the totally amazing art sort of completed it, and it was this thing that was bigger than the sum of its parts, and for me, it was like, it was it goosed my imagination. It got me thinking about the games in a different way. So, Pitfall, Super Breakout, love Kaboom. Kaboom's an amazing game where you go into this weird Zen mode, and you just, all these bombs are falling and your eyes are glazing over and your parents are like, are you okay? And like, that's like, one of my, favorite games. And there's so many good ones.
Very cool, very cool. I always liked Missile Command as well. That was a cool one. So.
It reminds you of home?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We always like the battle game. Well, we use them for training, actually. That's how it all got started, So we used all these training videos to, practicing for going into battle. So, and then they came up with the market to, make it a video game. So intergalactic battle. That's what it's all about.
That's right.
So now I understand that you have another book that's coming out in December. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that book, the special edition is coming out in December. The regular edition is out now. It's called Undisputed Street Fighter, and I actually art directed it and edited it. So I did not write it, but I was heavily involved. I'm the series editor for this. We're calling it Video Game Icons, and Art of Atari was the first one. Undisputed Street Fighter is the second one, and it's basically we're looking at the whole Street Fighter franchise, like from the very beginning. From Street Fighter 1, which is 30th anniversary this year, all the way through up to the present day, and about how these fighting games sort of evolved and how they changed and how they really sort of took the industry by storm, and what were the first things, what were the first innovations of those games, the character design, because there's these awesome wild characters, everybody from, Blanca to Ryu, and really digging deep in there. And we're trying to do a kind of video game journalism and sort of art history at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So now you say as a child that you really got into the art of these games. Elaborate on that. What sparked that interest in getting into the art of these games?
I think the first part is I'm no good at actually playing video games, so I had to come up with something else. But really though, I'm a visual person, and I love telling stories, and I feel like. The artwork really helped tell this story. Even if you had this super simple game, something like, Breakout or, even Adventure, there was this almost like this mythology behind it just from this one piece of art. So I was always fascinated. You look at a game like Video Checkers. If you look at the Atari Video Checkers, there's this menacing, king in the background and this prince sitting next to this princess, and who will win and who will lose? It's like this Game of Thrones of checkers, right? But all the way you could tell this awesome story, or even just the suggestion of a story through one image really fascinated me, and that sort of, got me into visuals. I was an art kid growing up, and I'm a graphic designer now. It's kind of my day thing. And, for me, it's all about telling stories. And so the art is really interesting to me, art and design, because I think we talk a lot about the people who make the games, the programmers, and, some of them were kind of these rock stars of the video game industry. But the people that we don't talk about are the artists and the designers and the marketing people who were sort of creating this new industry. And I think, for me, I really like shining a light on the creative people that maybe don't get talked about a lot.
Oh, that's very good. That I can appreciate. So now, as an artist, you say now that you're a graphic artist, what were some of the mediums that you worked in before you got into graphic art?
I drew. I was a painter. I'd probably consider myself an average artist. That's where graphic design. That's why you go into graphic design instead of fine art, because you're not that great of an illustrator. But for me, I like to think about graphic design as you touch all the different parts. You touch, typography and lettering, and you touch, photography, and you touch illustration, and you get to be this little bit of this miniature maestro. So you're pulling all these different things together, and since I kind of like to be sort of in control of the whole thing, you get to bring all this stuff together into one, and you're not a master of one of those particular things.
Right. I see. So now, did you have a particular medium that you would lean towards as a favorite?
I always liked working with either pastels or Conte crayons, anything that was really messy, and ink, anything where I could really get my hands dirty.
Something that you could really grind into the carpet, really piss your mom off.
Yeah, absolutely. Right next to the Play-Doh, the dried Play-Doh in the corner, and then we were forbidden to use that on the shag carpeting ever again.
So yeah, you wanted something that blends on the walls really well, right? So,
exactly.
Don't you love it, Mom? I made it for you.
Get the soap, get the water, hurry.
So now with the Street Fighter, if you could hang out with anyone from the world of Street Fighter, who would that be?
Chun-Li.
Really?
She had really nice legs.
Ah, I see. Okay, this is a family show.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's all the time we have. I do appreciate you coming out, Tim.
Thank you.
I do hope you come back again sometime.
Thank you.
All righty. Give it up for
Thanks.
Tim. Tim Lapetino. Thank you.
No good comes of the video game, son.
Big jerk.